Hey everybody, thank you for joining Larry Sports Rhetoric. I'm your host today, Daimon, and I'm going to do a new segment where we're talking about what we're looking forward to in the college football season. For those of you that checked out our introductory video, Nate and I both are huge football fans. He's more of an NFL fan, I'm more of a college football fan. I'm a big Florida State fan. I talk about what attracted me to that team and how I became a Florida State fan in that video. So if you're curious about that information, you can check out our introductory video. It should be in our catalog. And basically, in addition to Florida State, I just love college football. I love waking up in the morning, figuring out what games I'm going to watch, watching games all day Saturday, usually some Thursday night games, occasionally the Friday night game. And, that's just the way I've been for a long, long time. So I also play college fantasy football, so a lot of times I'll check out teams based on that. But mostly I just like to figure out like fun players to watch, fun teams to watch. Just love those big plays, whether they're offense plays, defensive plays, nice run, good pass, whatever. So the nature of this segment is I'm going to go conference by conference and kind of talk about what players and teams I'm looking forward to watching at the outset of the season. And I'm sure during the season this will change. People will emerge. I'll find guys that are interesting, and definitely once I draft my fantasy team, that'll change the guys that I'm interested in. So anyway, with that said, the first segment here we're going to go with the American Athletic Conference, and I'm going to go ahead and break down the teams that I think are interesting and the players I think that are interesting in that conference, and the teams I'll probably try to watch as much of as I can. So, for starters, Cincinnati, obviously, their team has kind of been the class of that conference for the last few years. And last year's team, obviously, was really good. A lot of guys went to the NFL. I'm very curious to see what they do to replace those guys, the defensive guys. Can they find replacements? They were a lot of fun to watch last year on defense. And it'd be really interesting to see if they can maintain that level, if the guys that are still behind or still returning can be mixed with some newcomers and maintain that level of play. Very curious to see that. Also on the offensive side, they lost a lot of guys on the offensive side, starting with Ridder. Do they have a replacement for him? I know they have a kid named Bryant. I believe he transferred to Eastern Michigan and had a decent season last year, and now he's transferred back to try to be the starter there. And then also a young kid, I can't remember his name, I think it's like Prater, that I believe from everything that I researched, he's like the highest quarterback recruit in Cincinnati history. So it'd be really interesting to see who wins that job, and are they able to keep that offense running at the level that Ridder had it at. In addition to that, obviously the running back situation. Ford was one of my favorite running backs to watch last year. So that's going to set up what kind of replacement do they have for him. Is it going to be a committee? Is it going to be a single back? And, is Fickle ready to just kind of flip the switch and reload the way the great college coaches do it, the great programs, where it's just reload and not rebuild? Is he at that level? I think that'll be very interesting. Another team that I'm very interested in this year is Houston. Similar to Cincinnati, they've kind of been right up there with several coaches in a row, honestly. I'm interested in Holgorsen. I always find West Virginia's teams with him to be entertaining to watch, at least on the offensive side of the ball. It seems like that's been kind of a disappointment in my perspective at Houston. I almost feel like their defense has been better than their offense since he's been there. But one thing that you could always count on in West Virginia is if he had a senior quarterback that had been in the system for more than 1 year, that guy was going to put it together and the offense was going to be fun. Score a lot of points, move the ball, big plays. So I'm very curious to see that. I'm curious to see what they have at the running back position. And then also they lost some big guys on defense, and they've been a really good defensive team lately. They've been putting a lot of guys in the NFL. So who do they have to replace those guys? And then those two teams in particular, I just, the level of play. What level of play are they at? Where are they banging to the Big 12? I think if you're a Big 12 fan, you should be very interested in watching Cincinnati and Houston to see, what level of play do they have? Are they going to fit into your conference? Are they going to make it better? Are they going to make it worse? Are they going to be able to compete from day one? I kind of feel like they probably will from what I've seen of them, but it'll be really interesting this year to see those two teams with that thought of how do they compare to a Big 12 team. Also, another team can't discount is UCF. They've been another team that's been really good through multiple coaches, and they got Malzahn from the SEC. This is obviously a different level for him. I thought he had a pretty good season last year, but you're kind of looking for a little bit more this year. I know that they had the quarterback transfer from Ole Miss, Rise Plumlee or something like that. Obviously, I didn't have to watch a ton of him when he was at Ole Miss, but he seems like the running quarterback that fits perfectly in Malzahn's system. So I'd be curious to see what that looks like at UCF. And also, I know they had a kid, Bowser, last year that I loved watching until he got hurt. I thought he was really, really fun to watch run. Nice bruising back, which is always fun, especially at the college level. And I'm hopeful to see him back healthy and see if he can run at that high level that he was at last year. Let's see, what the ECU, another team. I think there's a lot of people kind of predicting them to win the conference. They're kind of interesting to me. I feel like the quarterback has been kind of a disappointment, but he's been okay. So I think he's like a 4-year starter or something like that, 6-year senior, something like that. So it'll be curious to see if he can kind of put that to a new level and be more consistent and bring that passing game. I know they have a great running game. Their running back put up good numbers last year. What was his name? Mitchell, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, so Mitchell, I think, was last year, and then the year before was Harris. So they have a kind of 1-2 punch at running back. Both those guys have proven that they can be 1,000-yard type backs. So you got that 1-2 punch. If he can bring a passing game, and it seems like that offense should be able to really take off. But that's a big question mark, and it should be interesting to see if that comes to fruition. If it doesn't, I wonder about their coach. Like it's been a few years now since they were really steady, good team for a while there, and they haven't really been that with this new coach. So is he maybe in his last leg? So I think that's an interesting storyline to kind of pay attention to in the American this year. Memphis is kind of the same boat since Norvell left. When Norvell was there, and even Fuentes before him, they were always a fun offense to watch. They always had a fantastic running game. It seems like that has fallen off a lot since the new coaching staff has come in. I know last year the freshman quarterback surprised people. He had a solid season for a freshman quarterback. So does he make a leap as a sophomore? Is there more to him? He's losing a heck of a player. Talking about fun to watch, Calvin Austin was a heck of a lot of fun to watch. And then a solid tight end in Dykes that I always like to see what he was doing. So do they have replacements for those guys? Do they have weapons for those guys? And can they get that running game going, what they really haven't had going in recent years after a string of fantastic running back after fantastic running back that the program had during the Norvell years? So those things are really interesting to me. And then, like I said with ECU, I wonder with Memphis if they don't get those things going, if those things don't click, is it time to move on to a new coach? That feels like a team that had kind of reached a level of success that was being sustained, and now it's not. So do they kind of fade back into an also-ran, or do they regain that top of the conference, name to look out for status? Well, I guess we'll wait and see. The teams in this conference, I think, Navy is always interesting. I got a lot of respect for Navy. Any time you got guys that volunteered to serve our country, and they also have the burden of playing football. That's a lot to do, a lot to deal with. So a lot of respect for those guys. And I think Navy's always been one of those teams that's, you never really want to play them because they're not going to be ranked in the top 25, so you're not going to get a whole lot out of winning. But any given weekend, they can get you because they play hard and they're scrappy and they make it an ugly game. And so that can be fun to watch, watch a contender or a high-flying offense go in there and all of a sudden struggle with either not getting on the field like they're used to because they're grinding it out on the ground, or that defense just playing hard and physical. And so I've always thought Navy was a fun team to watch, even if they're not, one of the better teams. And I've always had a lot of respect for those guys. So I'll definitely try to check out some Navy games this year. Let's see. I'm trying to think. SMU. SMU is another team. I think it's very interesting with Dykes moving on, and then they're bringing a former OC back to be the head coach. So you would assume the offense should be fairly familiar and fairly similar. That's been an offense that's been fun to watch, especially the wide receivers. They pumped a lot of wide receivers into the NFL recently. Last year being no exception with Gray and Roberson. So I know they got what's the guy coming back? I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but I can't think of his name. Anyway, they got Mordecai at quarterback who transferred there from Oklahoma. He was really good last year. For whatever reason, I'm escaping the one wide receiver's name, but it'll be interesting to see if another wide receiver steps up to pair with him because they usually have a good pair, and that offense is usually humming. So and then how does that offense do against those good defenses like Houston and Cincinnati and possibly even UCF this year? I think the defense is improving. So that's always fun. Those games, anytime any of those four teams play each other, I always try to check it out because it's a fun game. There's usually a lot of offense and guys that are going to be in the NFL draft. So that's kind of where I start my NFL draft prep is watching games like that and getting the feel for who's good and who's not. So I like that. Those are kind of the teams that I'll be looking for. I know there's other teams in the conference. They just don't excite me. Tulane, Temple, USF. Since Taggart left, they haven't really been the same. Who am I missing? I don't want to slight anybody when I don't want to miss a team that I'm saying isn't that fun to watch, but there's one more in there that I can't think of. But I just think like those teams are not worth watching, and they're not worth watching when they play the good teams because they're going to get beat. And when they're not playing the good teams, it's just not a fun game to watch. So to me, I'm kind of focused on those other games, those other teams. Maybe if a player pops up on one of those teams that I'm talking about that ends up being, like an NFL caliber kind of player, I might start checking them out. If you know of one, tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear that. But for the most part, those are the guys, those are the teams and the players that I'm looking for, just because I'm really curious to see what they do and curious to see, hoping to watch some fun football this year. At this point, I'm just so geeked up and ready to go. It's like, let's do this. I've been doing these videos just to kind of get ready, get prepared, because I can't wait. I love when September rolls around. There's something special about the start of the football season and college. For me, college more than pro. I just love it. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it gave you some things to think about teams or players to watch. Like I said, if you're a fan of one of the teams in this conference, I'm just on the outside looking in. If I miss something, if you know of a player that seems interesting, please put it in the comments. I'd love to hear it, or just anything you want to comment on. We're always trying to grow our channel, and the best way to do that is to interact with the fans. That's why we named it Sports Rhetoric, because we want to have that conversation and that sports talk with people. And so if you enjoy our channel, enjoy what we're doing, please hit the like button, please hit the subscribe button, and go ahead and comment because we'd love to hear from you. All right, that's it for this one. We'll see you next time. Thanks.